Hi, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to Real Talk. I'm your host, Pat Terrio, and we are here in this beautiful sunny day at the W.H. Bud Barron Airport. You know, we always like to go out in the community to meet people that are in the professional field, but we'd like to see what they do when they're not behind their desk, when they're not performing surgery, when they're not making these huge decisions. We like to see what they're doing when they're playing. We've got Don Avery here, who is the president and CEO of Fairview Park Hospital, who has a hobby that he calls flying. And so you're going to meet Don, and we're going to have some fun today. He's going to give me a little tutorial on how to fly, and we might just take a little flight. So stay tuned with us and enjoy the show. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're with the man of the hour himself, Mr. Don Avery, President and CEO of Fairview Park Hospital. And we are actually in his hangar, a.k.a. man cave.
Yeah, that's my man cave. That's right.
How are you doing,
I'm
Don?
good, Pat. How are you doing?
You know, we're so excited to be out here, you know, and it's important that the people out there just see you in a different light. And we're quite sure this is, you know, just from walking around and looking at the memorabilia, this is your play therapy.
I do. Sometimes I come out here just to relax and get away, and it's kind of a relaxing place for me.
It's really beautiful.
Sometimes just cleaning the airplane or cleaning out the hangar just makes me feel better. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because we know day-to-day issues that you're on it like this. And so it's...
Some people might argue that, but...
the jury's out on that
That's
one.
right.
But, you know, we wanted to come out here and just to kind of see where you relax and kind of talk a little bit about you and talk about your family and the things that you enjoy doing. And one of those is flying planes.
It is. It's been a hobby of mine my whole life. I grew up flying. The first time I ever flew in an airplane, I was 5 months pregnant. I mean, my mom was 5 months pregnant with me in her tummy,
wow.
And she went flying with my dad. So literally, I've been flying since before I was born.
Since before you were born.
Yeah.
And now you started flying yourself, actually, in the cockpit.
I did. You know, of course, my father and I went flying a lot on weekends, and he and some friends of his owned an airplane, and so we spent a lot of time at the airport growing up and flying. But I actually got my pilot's license when I was 18. I started taking lessons when I was 17, and was a licensed pilot at 18, and then, of course, I went on and became an Air Force pilot as well.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your family history now. You have a very interesting family history of pilots.
I do. It was something I didn't actually find out till later in life. Just several years ago, my sister sent me an email and said, "Did you know about William Avery, Uncle William Avery?" And I did not know about him, but I did some research, and William Avery was an aviation pioneer, began flying in the late 1800s, gliders. There's some pictures of him, historical pictures of him. He was friends with Orville and Wilbur Wright.
The Wright brothers.
The Wright brothers.
We just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, the Wright brothers. and they had a friendship and a relationship, and I actually have pictures of my great-uncle William flying a later version of the Wright Flyer. He was with them at Kitty Hawk the day that they flew on December 17th, 1904, which I did not come to know this information until just a few years ago. And, and my dad had been saving me a folder of information till... I'm not sure till when.
Until you were ready to actually receive it.
Yeah. Apparently I wasn't ready when I was a kid or when I was in college or something. But anyway, I could not believe I had that kind of heritage, though, that I'm a fourth-generation pilot, and I think that's about as far as you can go. But that there was an Avery really at the beginning of aviation. It was pretty cool to find that out.
I mean, that's pretty huge.
Yeah.
And, you know, so it's always been in your bloodstream.
So maybe I had no choice but to fly.
You had no choice. You had no choice. Now, we want to kind of give them a tour of this man cave and kind of talk about some of the stuff that you have up here. Is that cool?
That'd be great.
All right.
You know, this stuff back here, you know, I got to have an American flag. I'm an American first and foremost. I served in the Air Force, and so I had those. And then, of course, the Air Force Academy. This is one of the many flags, as you'll see here, about the Air Force Academy. And the AF is just that is not Abercrombie and Fitch. That is Air
all
Force.
The teenagers out there.
That's right. And that's just our Air Force Academy, one of our insignias.
And we thank you for your service as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, let's mosey on along here.
Okay.
Let's see what else we got here.
Which way? If you're going to have a man cave, or you're going to have a place, you got to have things to work with. And of course, I like to keep the airplane clean. But there's a lot of things that I just started collecting them randomly. I didn't really set out to do this, but some things here. Of course, the A and the M are my daughters Amelia and Meredith, and then Farrah, my wife Farrah. Just talk about home. Home's really where it all comes back to, and it's more important than flying. But
yes.
But anyway, and of course, I find things over the years. I find up there where it says "Man Cave." I actually found a sign.
You're a Gator, I see.
I'm a Gator also. I went to graduate school there, but
Sorry,
first
Bulldogs.
and foremost, Air Force. And of course, just some flags there. And then as you kind of look back here, just some different flags. I just started collecting flags. In fact, sometimes I'll have friends give me Air Force flags or the pennants, etc. The hockey stick and the hockey poster there they were my daughter Meredith's, and they have some special meaning to us. And again, just some things we've collected. You've got to have a refrigerator.
You've got to have a refrigerator.
I like to think that a man cave has to have an air conditioner, but the fans will have to do for that.
They're sufficient.
They are sufficient.
Look at your open door, though. So.
I got a big open door, exactly. So
you've got a great view.
So again, I just collected things over the years and started putting them in here about a year and a half or 2 years ago, and pretty soon it's evolved into this is my man cave.
When you opened up this hangar, we were not expecting to see all of this.
Most people don't expect to see this. They used to tease me that it was very clean. You won't find much dust or bugs, things in here. I do keep it clean, but and I've added some lights just to make it a little brighter at night. But mainly I've started adding things, and then when you come over here, I especially ordered the Association of Graduates flag.
Oh, wow.
That's only the third of those ever made. And I just wanted to have that flag. And I contacted the Association of Graduates, and they said, well, we don't really sell those.
Right.
But they had it made and
this is so awesome.
for
and
me.
Then you've got the vintage signs.
Yeah, the vintage signs, I don't know why. I saw those, and I keep my eye out now, and if I see a vintage sign related to aviation, I buy it, and I can just stick them up there with magnets. In fact, I found one over here, a Coca-Cola. Again, it's a vintage sign about aviation, so I even collected that. But of course, I have a TV here, which now is an official man cave.
It is an official man cave.
And got some chairs, obviously. Even can come out here and work out on my elliptical.
Now, given your busy schedule, how do you have much time to be able to come out and just kind of chill out?
Usually it's at night, in the evening. If my wife is doing something, I'll come out here. Sometimes I'll just come out here just to get away. Or I do like to putter on the airplane a little bit. And it's just, again, it's a comfortable place to come. And I found that just hanging out at the airport, probably because I've been doing it since I was a kid. And it's a place that just feels peaceful and comfortable. And I just enjoy being out here. And here I am. It's evolved to more than just a hangar.
Yes, it has.
I did not really plan this. It just has kind of become that.
You've got a recliner out here.
You've got a recliner out here. That's right.
That's awesome. But it's so important to be able to decompress.
It is. And again, it's a hobby that's become more than that. I do fly a lot. I probably average about 10 hours of flight time a month, which is really a lot for a part-time pilot or general aviation pilot. I keep my ratings current, and I like to think I'm a pretty safe pilot, a very conservative pilot. I've got a lot of hours. I've been flying for 40 years, so I know what I'm doing, and I know what my limitations are.
Right.
But it is something that I practice and stay current. And so I decided if I was going to come out here, I'd have a hangar that I enjoyed and a place that was, like I said, I could be peaceful and have a Gatorade and come out here. I'll bring the dogs out here to run sometimes, and it's nice. And it's you're able to do this in a community like Dublin because it's a nice airport, but it's not a super busy airport. And most everybody knows everybody out here. A lot of local pilots, and so it's a real comfortable place to come. And people stop by, or I'll stop by their hangars, and so there's a kind of a fellowship out here as well.
Since 1987, Little House Self-Storage has been serving Dublin and Warner Robins with the best in customer service and the lowest prices anywhere. Any shape, any size, we have it. Plus climate control. At Little House Self-Storage, safety and security are our top priority. With TV security, special lighting, wide drives for easy access, and 24-hour-a-day access to the storage facility. We invite all businesses to remember Little House Self-Storage for storing records, chip and cookie routes, or contractors. We can even store your car, motorhome, or airplane. Little House Self-Storage, Moody Road, Warner Robins, and Marion Street in Dublin.
Now let's talk about your plane.
Okay.
And let's talk about your flying. Now you say you average about 10 flight hours. How often?
I probably fly 4 or 5 times a month, maybe 6 or 7. I flew this past week, for instance. I flew to Louisiana on Sunday and flew back on Monday. And so there was my 10 hours for the month right there.
In your 40 hours, in your 40 years of flying, how many hours have you logged in?
I've got about 2,500 flying hours, logged flying hours. A lot of the flying time I did growing up, of course, I didn't log any of that. But,
Correct.
So 2,500 hours, which is a pretty good number. For somebody who does it, a commercial pilot probably has over 10,000 hours. But most general aviation pilots, that'd be a pretty big number. So
for sure. Now, I fly. I'm not a huge fan of flying, but I'm trusting you with your 40 years of flight time experience for you to take me up in your plane.
I'd be happy to do that.
But let's talk about some of the safety precautionary measures that you generally take, because safety is first, and there's so many people that really have a phobia of flying.
Well, they do, and I take that seriously. Again, people that know me know I cut up a lot and I have a lot of fun, but when it comes to flying, I'm very serious. I would probably say I'm a better pilot than driver. Other people would agree with that, I'm sure. But every time I fly, I do a pre-flight. I make sure, generally speaking, the condition of the airplane is correct. That I look at the engine, I make sure the oil is at the right level and the fuel is at the right level. I check the landing gear, I check the instruments, really the whole overall condition of the airplane. Also, the fact that it's mine, I'm responsible for the maintenance on it.
Absolutely.
And I change the oil about twice as often as you need to. Again, just that extra precaution to make sure I have fresh oil in there all the time.
Right.
I make sure that my instruments are updated, and I've got really good avionics in there, so I can fly in all kinds of weather.
We want you to show us some of these things too.
I'll be glad to. We'll go to the other side.
Okay. And so this is the routine. Anytime.
Every time. Even if I fly twice in the same day, I still do it. Okay. And that's just an extra. I look here and make sure there's the right amount of oil in here. I also make sure that it's not bad oil, and you can tell pretty much. And again, because it's my plane, I'm familiar with it. And so I check the oil. I don't have to get into the engine compartment itself.
Okay.
Not that I'd know what to do if I got in there. I can change the oil, and that's about it. And again, I check the tires, but I'll come along here and just go over the overall condition of the airplane. What I'll also do, I'll come in, turn on the battery or the master switch, and I'll be able to tell what my fuel is. I'll lower the flaps just a few degrees. Watch your head there. And the reason I do that because I can see up inside the flaps there.
Oh, wow.
I can look in here and see I've got plenty of fuel. My instrument panel here, that's easier to see when that's turned on.
Right.
And I go check the leading edge. If it's a night flight, or I think I might fly at night, I'll also turn on to make sure my navigation lights work. And I check those regularly anyway, but I'm not going to right now because I'm not going to fly at night. These are the ailerons. This is what makes the airplane turn. And I'll check and make sure those are okay. I have a gust lock in right now. It keeps those from moving. Take that out.
Okay.
And so I can move these back and forth. And as you see, when this goes down, that one over there goes up.
Right.
And so I'll look under here and make sure that the weights are right, make sure that nut is tight. And so it's just, again, a pretty typical precaution, but you want to just make sure this is all solid in there.
Yes.
And then just make sure that I don't see any rivets out. And again, if this was a plane I've never flown, I'd probably take a little more time looking at certain things.
Right.
But
you know this plane.
But nevertheless, I still check to make sure something hasn't come out in the last flight, or a screw hasn't loosened or whatever. I make sure there's nothing here binding.
Right.
And I actually have had something binding before because there was something that was hung up on a wire and had to be corrected. So it is worth making sure that everything works okay.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can see the general condition. All these screws are in here.
Yes.
Make sure that antenna is good. There's some antennas under here. So I look at those. You know, the plane's clean. That's not
it
required.
Really is. It's a beautiful plane.
But that's something that it's like a car. I like keeping a car clean. I like keeping the airplane clean. It also makes a pre-flight inspection easier when the airplane's clean, quite frankly.
Right.
So again, the same thing on this side. I look underneath here and make sure everything is as it should be.
Yes.
And I touch a lot just because it makes me look. And again, I would come along here and make sure everything's good. I can look at the landing gear, all three of them. Again, I know I keep the tires at a certain air pressure,
right?
And I can tell if they're starting to wear down. And then I just kind of look at an overall. You know, is the airplane flight worthy? Is there something that I see that might, be?
And so, what would you say? I want to ask you this because I mean, you've done all of this. You're ready. This plane is ready to fly. What would you say for someone out there that has an interest in flying? You know, you've been flying all your life.
It's something that, if you're very interested in it, first thing you do is get a flight. Most people, most instructors, will give somebody a flight for free. Take you up for an hour and see if it's something you like. Some people, you're going to know pretty quickly whether you like it or not. and if you do, and it's something you want to pursue. I mean, a friend of mine, a couple hangars over, just within the last 2 years, took up flying, and he now has an instrument rating and his own airplane. Now, that's somebody who really liked it and really invested in it. And in fact, I took him up in this airplane one time. He owned a different one. And he has since bought this exact airplane, the same year and the same model as this airplane.
Oh, wow.
And we kind of laugh that we now have, twin airplanes. But my advice would be go take a flight first and see if you enjoy it. And if you do, then take a few lessons and see if you have a knack for it. It's not that hard to learn. There are a lot of things to learn, and because I've been doing it my whole life, it probably becomes more natural than it might otherwise, but it's not that hard. And seeing the world from 4,000 or 5,000 feet is pretty indescribable. My wife said to me once a couple of years ago that she couldn't believe that after all the years I had been flying, she said, you still your face is like full of wonder every time you take off.
Wow.
And I think that Da Vinci, who never flew, had a quote about those who fly constantly look at the sky and long to return. And it amazed me that somebody who never flew completely captured what flying is all about. Every time I see a plane, I look up. I always think of, this would be a great day to fly. And you always look forward to your next flight. And that's just the way I look at flying. It's a passion. It's something that I've always enjoyed doing. I don't really take it for granted, and I suppose in some ways I do. I feel very blessed to be able to do it. For me, it's probably the same satisfaction that others get from going hunting or fishing or other hobbies that they might have.
You took the words out of my mouth because I was going to say that feeling that it gives you that sometimes indescribable lets you know that it's your passion.
Yeah, it really is. And the funny thing is, it's a passion that's also very practical.
Right.
I've been able to take people, from point A to point B when they wouldn't be able to get there otherwise.
Right.
You can take, people who are sick, transport patients. My dad and I have both done that. There are times I use it, in a work-related situation. There are times, for instance, a couple of years ago, I got a chance to go to my niece's graduation in Tennessee because I only had that day free, but I was able to fly up, go to a graduation, and come back. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't a pilot with an airplane.
That's right.
I had a chance to go see my granddaughter this weekend, and a 12-hour drive became a 4-hour flight.
Well, hey, you got one of those insurance apps too? You know how this thing works?
No, sorry. It's not an app, it's my agent.
In this moment,
No, I'm fine, thanks.
it's good to know you have a trusted, independent auto owner's insurance agent who's there when you need them.
Great.
Man, I gotta get one of those.
Auto Owners Insurance. The no problem people.
See your insurance, your auto owner's agent at 904 Bellevue Avenue in Dublin or call 272-0915.
Fear, I get it, because people feel like they don't have control. But the reality is, who has control on the highways? I have more control on this than you do on the highways, because there are more people that can hit you. And I will tell you this, too, in terms of safety. People say, what happens if your engine quits? I've never had an engine quit, and I've been a pilot for almost 40 years.
Right.
So you can pretty much dispel that. However, if that to happen, and we practice, what happened if you lost an engine? It's part of the check ride we take. It's part of the thing I do every year just to practice. If this airplane lost its engine, I could land in almost any field or any dirt road or any road out there. There's almost no place that I couldn't
This plane would just...
and walk away. I could land on a golf course. I could land on a field.
How cool is that?
I couldn't land in a forest.
That's right.
But I could land almost anywhere and walk away. This particular airplane is called a Cessna Skyline. It's a 182. It's the safest airplane in the history of general aviation. And it really is a very, very good airplane.
Well, it looks great, and you know it like the back of your hand. Since you were an Air Force pilot, what's the largest plane that you've flown in your...
That I've personally flown a
Yes.
C-131. It's an Air Force cargo airplane. I mainly flew trainers. I was an instructor pilot and trainers, but the largest plane I flew was the C-131, and then the T-38, which is a supersonic airplane, is probably the fastest airplane I've flown.
Those are so cool.
T-38 is a pretty cool airplane. There's no question about that.
So cool.
And that's another thing I felt very blessed, because when I was a kid, my dream was to be a pilot, and I was able to go to the academy and then become a pilot in the Air Force.
So you're kind of living your dream. You're living.
In many respects, I've been able to, do what I always wanted to do. And that being said, today, living the dream is being a hospital administrator. This is a hobby, but I love what I do for a living as much as I do.
And you can absolutely tell. People can absolutely tell. When you mention Don Avery, people go crazy.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Really?
They think that you're so awesome and have such a great personality, and that you really care about people.
Well, I appreciate that. I do care about people, and the reality is, in the job that we do at the hospital in healthcare, you better care about people, or you better get out of the profession and do something different, because that's what it's all about. Regardless of what my employees do, whether they're a housekeeper or a nurse or a therapist or a medical technologist, whatever they do, they get a chance every day to care for people.
Absolutely.
And so what we do, what I get to do, is care for people. I may not treat patients, but I get to care for those who do.
Absolutely.
And I get to care for the patients as well.
Absolutely.
But maybe more indirectly. So if you can't get excited about that, then maybe you need to be doing something different.
That's right. So you're right where you need to be.
I think I was made to do what I'm doing. So
And that's a
I feel very
blessing, too.
blessed.
I was
Yes,
going to
very
say that.
blessed.
All right, well, let's get in this plane and
Okay.
let's see what this baby can do.
Okay, well, I'm going to pull it out first.
Okay. You've got to film this to show how strong Don Avery is physically.
You notice I'm not really working very hard.
This guy is pulling an airplane. There's nothing this CEO can't do. All right. We're in the plane, Don. Let's talk to people through what's getting ready to transpire.
Let me get this so I know what to do. So here's the instruction manual. I want to make sure I know what I'm doing.
I'm glad you're reading instructions. For the record now,
Stay at Holiday Inn Express.
Right. I did. I use a checklist. Even though I've been flying for all this time, I still have a checklist. I go by the checklist. I think it's a safe thing to do. And as I told somebody once, I know what I'm doing. I'm still using the checklist.
Yes.
So I go through this, and a few things I do. I turn on the power switch and what we call the beacon. It's an outside light. It lets anybody around here know that I'm getting ready to start up.
Okay.
And then, a few things I check. I've already checked the weather before I came here today. I already have some flaps down. So I'm ready to start the aircraft. And what I would normally do, I'd push the throttle in. It's called a mixture. It controls the mixture of fuel and air.
Okay.
Which you probably don't care about.
I just care about it going up and coming down.
It'll start just that quickly. And it flies That's right. Sometime within
How it come?
in about if nothing else happens, it'll be down.
Listen, don't play games like that.
No, it will come.
It'll come down. Because in 6 hours, it's going to run out of fuel. Trust me, we're not going to be up there for that long.
Okay, good.
So anyway, I go through this. Again, some of this I've already done on the exteriors, an exterior walkthrough.
Okay.
And then I'll come in here, I make sure that, everything's where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And then I start the airplane.